Table or truth?
Or went by. In our last episode of Table for Truth 10.2, Tyson here had mentioned that. Well, how did you just phrase what you just said? Like in the last episode.
That Israeli intelligence had the battle plans for Hamas a year in advance, and 6 weeks prior to the attack on October 7th, a veteran analyst observed a dress rehearsal, so to speak.
Yep.
Reported it to her superiors, and that it looked like a rehearsal for Jericho Wall,
Right.
which the 40-page document that was obtained by Israeli intelligence over a year ago was codenamed, and her superiors disregarded it. Now, what I didn't mention was on receiving this 40-page document, why didn't Israel do anything at the time? And what they said was they considered it to be aspirational, that Hamas couldn't do it, and which the intelligence
that's the cop out.
At the intelligence at the time, they were probably right. However,
that makes them look even worse now.
But however, if you say that at that time in 2022 that they couldn't do it, a year later, if that's what they were working for, they could. And the failure to realize a buildup, one, was obviously a failure. The other thing is, along with pulling troops off of Gaza and putting them in the West Bank, they also stopped their eavesdropping technology that they were using to listen to.
How convenient.
So,
can we say hubris or manufactured crisis? This is a choose your own adventure today. This episode is choose your own adventure themed. Pick one. Pick a destination. Hubris or manufactured crisis. You can't have it both ways. Let's just pick one. What do you think?
I think it was a failure, a comfort, taking your eye off the ball.
Right. Hubris.
Again, the concern, again.
We'll go with hubris because manufactured crisis would be too scary. I get it. The military-industrial complex would eventually rear its ugly head one way or another if we were to say manufactured crisis. But please continue.
But the other thing that I did not mention on last episode, because you ran me out of here.
Sorry. I was so emotionally distraught, like some of those advertisers against Elon Musk. I couldn't help myself.
Was that the analyst also pointed out that the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War was coming up, and which they struck the day afterwards. So that if there was a time to do it, this would have been a significant time. And we do the same thing every time around 9/11, particularly New York increases their security, because if there is an attack in New York, a terrorist group would get extra points, or the symbolism of doing another hit on 9/11 in New York. Right. So you do look for things. Or the 10th anniversary of something happened. In this case, we're talking about 50 years. So for Israel, or the leadership who had seen the documentation, or at least knew about it 6 weeks before the attack, not to take that in consideration and prepare for it, the possibility, obviously is a failure.
Okay, so we can relive last week's episode and just go, what the hell?
But what I want to examine is your conspiracy that this was set up by somebody.
Yeah,
Who
we don't know
set this
yet
up?
who, but
No. Just we're talking. We don't.
somebody who clearly, okay, I think I said this in a few episodes back, all right? How somebody saw or may have seen the opportunity to manufacture a crisis. Okay, hence why I recommend people watching the Star Wars prequels in a way where sympathies gain one way or another, or you pit two sides of somebody who don't already like each other much, and just literally light the fire keg. And then because most people don't understand game theory enough, they just kind of fall in place and become the very pawns that some bigger entity out there that is mysteriously in the shadows is totally okay with. Because once those wars get created, all hell breaks loose, and one way or another, you could make the argument that and I think I'd mentioned this. There was an article that was released in October, I think it was like 792 or something like that. Remember I was talking about that, where it was leaked out that this might be a great opportunity, seeing how, the Palestinians in Gaza have already been displaced. Well, just let them migrate to another country. Yeah, that's a good idea, because it's going to take too much effort to rebuild. Even though the original intent of going into Gaza was to get rid of Hamas, and I even defended it. In the back of my head, I knew I was just I have to say this, okay, because I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to just right away just poo-poo the idea that the government of Israel somehow has gone there, with less than ideal intentions, which is, okay, yeah, you get rid of Hamas. Obviously, you don't want to hurt the average citizens in Palestine, whether they had wisely or unwisely voted Hamas into power or not. It's still their land, which means they get first dibs when all the rubble is done, all the rumble is done, right? Just like the people in Maui, even if it's just a giant charcoal heap, you still get rights to your land because it's your land. We didn't go there to technically, keep your land conveniently. We went there because we want to get rid of the evil Hamas. I was like, well, obviously that sounds kind of suspicious, but I got to give them the benefit of the doubt, because at that point I was like, why don't we trust mainstream media for once, right? That's what they're saying they're going to do. I don't want to sound anti-Semitic. I agree that I don't think every Jewish person represents necessarily the intentions of what's going on here in the sort of dark undertones of some branch, I might add, not the entire Israeli government, but something out there doesn't sit right. Now, where does that leave people like me, right? Well, I still have, obviously, I'm totally 100% defending Israel's right for getting rid of the terrorists. I won't call them terrorists, although technically, whatever. The threat of Hamas. Okay, I haven't changed my stance on that. I don't think we talked about the constitution of Hamas, back or the manifesto, whatever you want to call it, that they wrote in 1980 in the late 80s, saying they literally want to genocide all Jewish people, especially out of the region. And I'm like, that's not cool. I don't know how people just skip that part. I agree with a couple of my friends. Like, if they really wrote their own version of Mein Kampf, right? Why would the Israeli government permit them to just hold their own elections and allow them to be the ones that ascertain power in the Gaza Strip? Now, I had to turn the blind eye because naturally, it is democracy. Good old Joe Biden's all about democracy, right? If that's what they chose to do, I don't think it was wise to have a gangster-like government in the Gaza Strip that has created this mess for the innocent people of Palestine. I realize that on both sides, Israelis and Palestinians that are innocent are paying the price for the iniquities and the corruption behind the scenes by people much more powerful that are kind of running things like a chessboard, right? And as usual, the middle and lower classes suffer the most. That's nothing new. I mean, look around here, right? But when all's said and done, that like this right here that you just described is like taking the queen out of the chess game here. Okay, I have no way to defend not Israel, but the higher ups in the Netanyahu Israeli government that just dropped the ball, as you say. I like my whole claim, even like 3 weeks ago, how they let this happen and why I think this is a manufactured crisis. The only rational way to look at it is that somehow, I don't know if it's mega corporations that somehow want to use, the Gaza Strip for new land. Maybe there's oil reserves there. I've heard a rumor that there were. I gotta have to check the sites, right? Check my sources. But it's obvious that like most of these wars are for some sort of resource. It's never, almost never, to help the actual average person. You know how Biden was talking about Ukraine? We got to help them out and build up a democracy. Don't you want a democracy? Don't you love a democracy? And we're all like, yeah, we do. Like, of course we do. It's all just like cheap nothings. At the end of the day, how many, like, not to change the subject too much, how many Ukrainian innocents have died because of this disastrous campaign against Russia, right? Obviously, they don't want to be invaded, okay, or at least those who are defending the Ukrainian side of the land. But there could have been better ways to like broker a peace deal. But like somehow the poor citizens of Ukraine are the victims here. And in my mind, questionably, here's another conspiracy theorist: the sacrificial lambs to a more nefarious thing that's being pushed by NATO somehow. Okay.
Hold it. Stop there.
Yeah, but you want me to stop?
Hold it. You tell NATO was pushing the Russia
I didn't say they
Ukraine
were,
war.
They were egging the whole thing on by ignoring
NATO was egging
by pushing the. Remember, I told you like months ago, and I said it seems like everybody ignored Russia's obvious concern that if you set up, if Ukraine becomes a member of NATO, right, and in theory, Putin's biggest public claim and concern is that they could set up missile bases closer to the borders against Russia. And that's a big no-no, right? I'm sure it's not all just like saintly, one-sided, like good intentions from the Russian government under Putin here. But at the same time, that was ignored in an almost arrogant way.
Really?
Yeah.
Before the Russian invasion, Ukraine was going to become part of NATO.
They were being egged on to almost think that they were going to be.
Who?
Why is Zelensky kiss up to the European powers so much? Because he's getting aid, right?
It wasn't just.
Is it? Are we there because of democracy for real, and not the massive natural resources that are in Ukraine?
Yes.
It's all pure democracy. Okay, well then logically, then we're cool with Hamas getting voted too. So that makes sense.
And the expansion, preventing the expansion of Russia.
Evil Russia, yes.
You said evil.
Well, I want to be part of the cool kids club here. I want to fit in. So I use
part
because
of the
they're obviously
kids,
evil.
and I didn't say
they're
evil.
obviously evil because they were no doubt going to be the next Hitler. I mean, once they get Ukraine, they were going to just keep pushing towards Poland and eventually Germany, and then from there they can relive the Third Reich or whatever, right?
Well, Germany,
even though technically
Zelensky
had more. Was there some scandals about, what was that? I don't even want to go there, but like the whole Nazi scandals in Ukraine or whatever.
You left the barn.
Yeah, I don't want to leave the barn. I don't want to leave the barn.
No, you already did. You went from Israel to Ukraine.
But
I don't know how you went to Ukraine.
All I know is that something doesn't sit right here, and I'm sure anybody listening is at least convicted and has to ask themselves, did we really go into Ukraine just for democracy? And likewise, where was it the most noble thing to do was if the Israeli government under Netanyahu, there was at least a branch of Secret Service, CIA, their version of it, knew of this open wound that could be Operation Jericho that you just said, right?
Jericho Wall, to be exact.
Okay, and you put the pieces together and you ask yourself, okay, even just allowing Hamas to be voted into power. Well, of course they were doing it. I mean, they could set it in a press release. We're doing it because, democracy. I mean, in all fairness, yeah. And in a way, they're right? I mean, I guess it's just a coincidence, though, the whole way everything.
The election was in 2006/7, I think in 2006.
Yup.
And so, again, Hamas.
They were voted fair and square, even though the Mein Kampf was written
when
decades before.
Fair and square, there were a lot of opposition people, including
the Hamas was voted unfair and square.
Palestinian authorities who lost their lives, so they somehow fell out of buildings.
Right. Okay. The Hamas was voted in unfair and lame. We'll just say. Okay. And even though they basically wrote the latest version of Mein Kampf,
there has not been an election since.
Yeah, and the Israeli government, they didn't see this coming at all.
Well, it is believed what Netanyahu, who was no fan of the Palestinian Authority,
right?
The
PLO, you mean?
Well, the PLO had turned into they're currently known as the Palestinian Authority, and by some Western standards are considered corrupt and ineffective. But they are the authority in the West Bank.
Okay.
So Netanyahu, it appears, who was no fan of PLO / the Palestinian authorities, attempted to separate them from Hamas by agreeing with or assisting Hamas and believing that Hamas running the West Bank, they're running a government, they won't have time to do terrorist things, and there was not enough concern, obviously, about them hurting Israel.
But you were actually very surprised, I'm guessing, no doubt, that this Walls of Jericho thing happened.
Jericho Wall.
The lion tamer, if you will, happened.
Yes.
Because you didn't see it coming, because obviously you're not a conspiracy theorist, so they were the good guys all along. You must feel very almost mentally violated, I would imagine.
No.
Why don't we turn this into let's interview somebody who's totally follows the establishment narrative. Well, how do you feel?
Well, how I feel? I already said it. They had an opportunity to be prepared.
Israel,
right?
Israeli government,
Israel Defense Service or Defense Force, IDS.
Right.
They had the material in front of them and failed to act upon it.
Okay.
Now Netanyahu had some his own problems. He was up for charges for corruption. So along with some religious, the religious right were concerned about their settlers going into the West Bank, and Netanyahu needed their support to stay in power. And so, again, additional troops who were monitoring Gaza or responsible for the settlements around, Gaza were moved to the West Bank.
And that's how they got into the territory, because the walls were, the defenses of Israel in the southern area were conveniently let down. Okay, we've talked about this, so right. How do you emotionally feel now that you know all this?
Emotionally feel?
Yeah.
The ball was dropped. They had an opportunity to drop the ball. There's no emotional feel about it.
So once again, it's almost like last episode you repented, and then this episode you're going back to your hardened heart, if you will.
Repented? I did not repent.
You realize you were starting to see the light of that conspiracy theorists aren't that crazy, and now you're
no.
Okay,
I
so
did
you still
not.
Can't accept it. Put me back in the Matrix. I don't want to know. I got it.
I'm taking the blue pill.
Fair enough. Take the blue pill. It's easier. I get it. All right. Fair enough. All right. What else we got?
All right. So it seems that some in the progressive left in the States here seem to be giving their support to the Palestinians.
Yep.
But it seems to me not giving enough condemnation of Hamas.
Not combination? You mean kind of like what? Okay, all right. Let's
condemning Hamas enough. Israel is to blame. There was a.
You mean an extremist way of looking at reality without looking at the truth, or the middle?
Pro-Palestinian demonstration in Philly happened outside of Goldie,
right.
Which is a restaurant. Did you hear about this? The restaurant that's owned by. Actually, he's got several. He is a famous Jewish chef who has several restaurants. So this group decided to do a hard protest, stop traffic outside his restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he necessarily has influence over Israel or responsible.
And neither did any innocent Jew in Germany in the 30s, but please continue.
But they used the term in their chant that what was occurring currently is genocide.
Yep.
That Israelis are.
You're not suggesting, good grief, you're not suggesting that the mob mentality in general on either side doesn't tend to polarize to an extremist view without actually exercising some reason and intelligence, right? You're not saying that.
No, I'm not saying that.
So these people were clearly in their right mind and not just becoming part of a rabid mob that could be, or they could be reasoned with. This mob could be reasoned with, right? Because the people that go to those extremes don't tend to be people that have a cognitive bias, I should say, right? And therefore, once that bias hits, there's nothing you can say. They'll take the proverbial blue pill and never be reasoned with. They'd rather be in the matrix of their own sort of immediate reality as they see waking life.
Well, my problem with that, and again, all lives matter.
Well, what were you 2 years ago?
When was I 2 years ago?
I'm just saying you would have gotten keelhauled for saying that. But please continue.
I was there 2 years ago, and you want to go off topic again?
No, I'm just saying. It's a night of confessions.
You're so 2020.
I'm so 2020. I'm so 2020. You're 2008, right? That kind of thing.
No, I'm 2023.
You 2023. Going into 2024. I'm behind the times, guys.
Yes.
Except I'm always right, apparently, because I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. But please continue.
Yeah, I like, again, moving the goalposts.
I'm not moving the goalposts. I'm just bringing you back to the real dimensions. Please continue.
But where I have a problem with the left protest is that where were these protests for the Palestinians when Assad was killing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Syria?
Mm-hmm.
Cluster bombs.
Couldn't agree more.
Barrel bombs, chemical weapons.
So you
didn't see boo out on the streets. Nothing.
Agree.
Over Assad. Just boggles my mind. But now, and you have to look at it. Oh, so there was nothing there, and then now we have this here. Is it because it's Israelis that are in it? Is it that Jews are now in it? And so now we want to come up. Is there some type of...
Okay, so I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We're tight on time here, but are you... Not your intent, but it seems like you're almost suggesting by what you're observing that this isn't really about fairness in terms of, even if we were to look at, because people like to use they always like to live in the past to justify reparations and injustices of the present. That's pretty fair, right? That's almost like a leftist claim. Things that happened hundreds or 50 years ago. Well, let's just dwell on that and then continuously use that as justification for the injustices that might exist in the modern world. But ironically, you just proved that seems a little hypocritical to think that.
No.
If you're
no.
If you're not taking into account, for instance, let's just say for the sake of this case study, there were injustices done against Palestinians in the recent past. But why right now are people going to these extremes? I want to counter that and put myself in the mind of somebody who's really supporting this and willing to just block a Macy's Day Parade. But the only thing that comes to my mind is that I am naive. I don't look at history in an objective way, and I don't understand the idea of a greater objective truth. I am more kind of addicted to my personal pseudo-truth, even if it doesn't align with the absolute truth. And as a result, it's so scary to get out of there. As you even mentioned, I'm not putting you on the spot, but it's easier to take the blue pill, as you say, to not actually have to deal with the difficulties of having to face that side of your own mind, one's own mind, and that goes for me too. By the way, I'm not putting anybody down here. That is the inconvenient, bigger truth of we may be wrong about what we're thinking, or we may actually only be believing in a half truth, or maybe something in our ideology needs to be tweaked, but we're too afraid to actually face that. So we'd rather just bury our heads in the sand and just stick with people that kind of think like us. And as a result, if enough of us think like us, we can turn into a mob if we're not believing in absolute truth.
Well, it's not that. But, if I'm
wrong?
looking at this example in Philadelphia, again, protesting and basically shutting down the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Now, if they had gone to the Israeli embassy, let's say.
I agree. That would show a semblance of intelligence. Nothing against the idea of protesting, but
I want the audience to know that it was my partner that questioned the intelligence.
Well, what do you want me to say, audience? Like I'm serious. Like, I'm not trying to look. If I was me, I would assume somebody would ask me, "Hey, where's the intelligence behind that?" And I would have to be forced to actually make concessions for that. Am I wrong? If I go out there and I protest the wrong target, right? Just because I don't seem to have enough insight to realize this cat, okay, unless he's got some secret ties with the Netanyahu ring, okay, maybe they know something I don't know. And then from that point of view, audience that is actually trying to detract against this, I owe you a massive ass apology, and I'm sorry. But until then, help me out, because you're obviously the more mature members of the audience, and you're clearly smarter than I am, and that's fine. I 100% am okay with that. I'm not trying to be a dick, okay? I'm just saying, all right? At the end of the day, clearly you know something the rest of us don't. But if that's the case, then through peaceful, rational debate, rather than just block a bunch of streets and threaten people in the street, all right, if you happen to be part of a big protest, at least hit the right target. How are you wrong, Tyson? Go to the Israeli embassy. But why affect this guy who just owns a restaurant? Does that make them intelligent or not? That's a fair effing question.
Since I don't know the leadership who
why am I the bad guy?
Since I don't know who organized this in the minute details, which could make a difference of why they chose Goldie.
Yeah, why Goldie?
All the the Jewish places or establishments in Philadelphia. I can't answer that question.
Am I mocking anybody in Philadelphia right now?
What drives me crazy, and back in the day, 2020, I had problems with BLM too.
Okay, I didn't have problems with the idea of BLM at all. I think it's a great idea. I think it definitely needs to be heard.
But there were some things that I had problems with BLM also. But in this case, because what we also had, which has come up recently, is the silence, or the lack of concern about all the Israeli women and girls who were raped, autopsies found pelvic bones broken, legs broken.
I don't need.
There were.
I guess that's the ugly reality.
Pictures of.
Didn't see them.
Of
bad things.
Girls being raped and being killed while they were being raped, and then we have, part of the deal that was struck. Hamas was supposed to release all the women and children, in which they have not released all the women and children, and there is speculation that those women and girls continue to be raped.
Good grief. You're almost making it sound like it's hypocritical to go 100% supportive of Hamas without actually accounting for the other side of the issue. That's what it sounds like. Again, I just converted. I apologize. I repent for my ways. The people that were protesting against the restaurateur know something I don't know. And I apologize, because clearly there's something there that I'm missing. Please, I listen. You listen. If those of you who listen to me, I'm clearly a walking cartoon. I'm immature, right? Help me out, okay? You're obviously the better person. Just leave a comment below. Not a vitriolic one, F you, but explain to me, elaborate. And I will publish it. We will discuss it in a further episode because I don't know all the answers. I don't have godlike abilities. Okay? Now, I don't want to keep going here because we're out of time. But I think these are issues that, on a deeper level, maybe people should explore this about the human condition. Why do we tend to follow the path of least resistance of feeling a charge in our emotions and want to join a mob or just roar with a crowd?
I don't look at that as being the path of least resistance.
Well, tell us in a minute. We're out of time for this one. We'll meet you in the next episode. Enjoy your evening, everybody. Please help support the human race by sharing, hitting a like, and subscribing. Share the wealth of any wisdom, knowledge, and understanding gained when you listen to our show. Thank you so much.